Thanks for stopping by. This is Salesforce Simplified, the podcast from Victoriam Solutions.
So ready or not, in the Salesforce world, it will soon be time to turn the page on 2021 and leap into 2022. As crazy as that sounds, we'll be doing that by the way of Salesforce's Winter 22 release. Hi, I'm Mike Boyle from Victoriam Solutions, and welcome to the Salesforce Simplified podcast. On this episode, we will be speaking with Advic CPQ practice lead Aaron Shambly about some of his favorite new features in the upcoming Salesforce Winter 22 release. Hello, Aaron. It is a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Welcome back.
Hey, Mike. It's good to be back.
So this is your third of 3 annual Salesforce release assignments for the podcast, which you get paid vast amounts of money for. Thank you very much. This time, we're going to be looking at some of the highlights across Sales Cloud, Reporting, Experience Cloud, Field Service, and Service Cloud. But before we dive into those 6 features that you've selected to highlight for us, overall, what are your observations about the Winter 22 release as a whole?
Yeah, the Winter 22 release, I would say it was a bit quieter for what I would call the core products of sales and service. That said, there's still some good stuff in there that I have in the highlights. And as a reminder to everyone listening, these are just some highlights I've picked out. You should still go through the whole release notes, as there's a lot more in there. There's some good stuff for the more specific products in this release, like Einstein, Maps, and Experience Cloud, which, speaking of experience, we'll cover a couple of those here today.
And I should just alert folks to the fact that in this episode's notes, I will include a link directly to all of those Salesforce Winter 22 release highlights, not just the ones we talked about here, but the entire list that Salesforce put out, and you can peruse through there. Okay, so let's start with this Salesforce Winter 22 release highlight. It's a feature from Sales Cloud, and it's called Pipeline Inspection Updates. What's inside that one?
Yeah, so you might remember in I want to say the summer release, that we talked a bit about this pipeline inspection app that Salesforce was adding. This update really built on that. I think they probably took some good feedback from folks that had already adopted and started using it. But essentially, it'll allow managers to customize it more, to really dial in on either key deals or filter out deals that they view as a bit of noise in the system, so that they can have more actionable insight without having to have a report that someone's updating or constantly changing. So I really wanted to call this out and again reiterate, if you're not using the pipeline inspection feature, which will be linked in the Advic release blog, I highly recommend that you check it out, as it's something that just about any org could adopt and start using today.
And speaking of that blog, just so everyone knows, there will be a blog on the Salesforce blog page on advic.com. It'll be there in the early part of September, and it will talk about all of these release highlights as well. So there'll be a little extra information from Advic coming your way on that. Thanks to Aaron. Appreciate it. Let's move into reporting. This one is a mile long in terms of its title, so bear with me. It's called Update More Fields from the Report Run page with expanded inline editing. And I should also note that it's in beta. What's behind that one?
This is a really cool update that I think everyday users will greatly appreciate. It is still in beta, but because I really do think this will be one of the biggest pieces when it does become generally available, I wanted to call it out early. So today, when you do inline editing in a report, so that's allowing you to modify the actual data in your records without having to go into them or do it from a list view. You can do this in Salesforce reports. Today, you can only edit text and number fields, but in the future, you'll be able to edit really just about everything on there except for owner, lookups, and a couple other small details, but you can review the entire note for that. But I think this is going to be huge, just so that, especially if you're maybe a sales manager making your own reports, you can pull in the actionable things you want to be able to update and see at a glance into a report for quick editing without having to access the record page.
The next two, Aaron, as you know, are from Experience Cloud. The first one is redirect users within an Experience Cloud site. What is that one?
Yeah, as I mentioned at the start when we were talking about overall thoughts on this, Experience Cloud got some really good updates. So the first one, as you were mentioning with the redirecting users, this will let an admin load essentially a very simple CSV of URLs to redirect a user from one page to another. And that doesn't sound too exciting by itself, but if you're managing an Experience Cloud site with a lot of users, and for example, let's say perhaps you have to merge an account or there's a new account for an existing customer, a lot of the times they'll just click the URL in their browser that they've always gone to without a second thought, or maybe a page they've bookmarked. And now, rather than taking them to an error page or something that says to the effect of, oh, this page doesn't exist, you can tell your Experience Cloud site to automatically move them to the new location that you're actually wanting them to go to. So it should serve admins pretty well for busy Experience Cloud sites so that they're not getting emails or cases from folks wondering, oh, my page that I've always gone to isn't loading. Now you can cut that step out and take them straight to their new page.
The fourth of 6 features that you've called out here for the Salesforce Winter 22 release. In its title, for those who don't know, could you just tell folks what an LWR site is so that when I mention this headline, they'll understand what that means?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is some terminology Salesforce has started to use with this release. And so there are 3 types of sites. The one that we're going to be talking about in a minute is called an LWR site. So that is an Experience Cloud site on one of the build your own templates. So it's the newest version of an Experience Cloud site. Outside of that, you have Aura sites, which are built on the older templates. So if you're using one of these, they might have been called something like Customer Service or Partner Central. And then the third type is a Visualforce site, which haven't been used in a while, but you may still have them out there, and that's actually your own Visualforce development. There's a full breakdown Salesforce provides, but at a high level, those are the types of sites. So when you see that language, that's what they're referring to.
Gotcha. So then let's ask you for the number 4 highlight here in Experience Cloud. Add content to LWR sites with new components.
Yeah. So as mentioned, the LWR sites are the new ones. And as part of that, Salesforce in this release is adding a number of new components, from banners to buttons, all sorts of fun stuff that you should really go into the release and check out. But it's exciting to see that there's going to be some new components available just out of the box in Experience Cloud so that you're not having to do your own custom development. It's really going to just make a richer customization experience in there so that you're not having to manage anything that you develop yourself down the line. That'll just come out of the box. So really exciting update for Experience Cloud sites. And I'm sure there's more components on the horizon.
Well, from Experience Cloud, we move into the 5th highlight that you have selected from the Winter 22 release, and that's in field service. And this update is called Easily Transfer Products Between Locations. Is it really easy, Aaron?
Oh, it's very easy. And that's why I wanted to call it out. Field service, for those of listeners that might not be using it, has a great inventory management system built into it. But one place where there could have been an update, it's like Salesforce was reading my mind a bit, and they came up with a simple action in the mobile app to let your mobile workers move their items between locations without additional customization. There's a record called the product transfer that, while it already worked, it didn't allow for partial receipt and some other customizations I see pretty frequently. But now out of the box, Salesforce has added an action to the mobile app to let your workers easily move their inventory and keep everything up to date without having to build it out yourself. So I think it's a pretty awesome update and will cut down on the amount of customization needed to just get field service up and running from the get-go.
Sounds pretty easy to me. The sixth and final highlight that we're going to call out from the Winter 22 release from Salesforce is called Give Agents More Context with a Customized Screen Pop. I'm a little scared of that. What does that all entail?
So it's a Service Cloud update, and one of the highlights that I picked just because when you have a service agent and they're accepting either a call or a chat or there's some message routed to them, a lot of the time today they can get at least one page open for them for context on that. But now, as part of the omnichannel updates, you'll be able to open up to 3 related records right on the screen without the support agent having to do any searching or work themselves. So when they accept that call, they could have perhaps details on the account that the person is calling from, their contact data, as well as the overall case that they're looking to resolve. So really, it's going to save support agents a number of clicks every day while they're working in Salesforce, and I think it's a really exciting update.
Well, as always, Aaron, I thank you so much for spending all the time that you do wading through all of the release highlights. As anybody who knows who does this and goes through all that, it's a lot to get through. And, as you indicated earlier in the podcast, do take the time to run through everything and take a look at it so that you become familiar with it. And I will put links in this episode's notes so you can peruse through all of that stuff. So again, Aaron, thank you. I look forward to having you back for Spring 22, which we'll talk about in early 2022, which, can you believe it? It's just like right around the corner. So thank you, Aaron. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And for our listeners, if you'd like to learn more about the Salesforce Winter 22 release notes, look for the blog that's on advic.com in the Salesforce blog. And I'll have a bunch of other links that I'll put in the show notes, as I've mentioned. And hey, is this your first time listening to our podcast? If so, thank you. But make sure you follow us now on your favorite podcast channel. Wherever there's podcasts, you'll find the Victoriam Salesforce Simplified podcast. I promise you, you can get past episodes, all the future ones. Just take the time to follow us. And we also appreciate you telling your friends and your colleagues too. And if you happen to be a podcaster yourself who might be looking for speakers who can talk about all things Salesforce or MuleSoft or technology in general, we here at Advic can put you in touch with one of our specialists. You just head over to our website's Contact Us page at advic.com, and we'll take care of all the rest. We'll get you all hooked up. I'm Mike Boyle from Victoriam Solutions. Thank you so much for joining us for this latest edition of the Salesforce Simplified podcast. Our next episode is just around the corner.
We're glad you stopped by. You've been listening to Salesforce Simplified, the podcast from Victoriam Solutions.